order at 7:00. Could we all rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Just well, it's our first meeting of the year. I'm moderator now. I was here last year. Now, this commission will have to vote for a new chair and a vice chair and a secretary. So we'll get this business done, and then after we do that, there are other things that we haven't done, like annual review and adoption of our policies, which start on page 13, I believe, and other things. But to start things off, Gene, I'd like to start with you, and we'll just go around and introduce ourselves because we have two new members, and we'll go from there.
Eugene Hansen.
Mike Miller.
Louis Ryman.
Jordan Potter.
I'm Mike Flynn,
Marcia Ward.
John Nicholson.
Steve Holm.
and there's two new members, Mike Miller and Steve Holm, and welcome.
Yes.
Thank you. So your first meeting. Our next business is to, for this year, to elect a chair and an elected vice chair and a secretary. So what I need to proceed further is a nomination for a chair. And
I nominate Mike Flynn as chair.
do I have a second to that nomination? And John seconds it. Any other nominations, though, from the floor? Boy, pretty tough crowd here. Might have some, but-
Hearing no other nominations, I move to close nominations and cast a unanimous ballot.
I raise a point of order. You're out of order. You got to ask 3 times under Roberts.
Oh, we're using
And that's
Robert's.
true.
I use Bob's.
Steve,
Well, Roberts, we're governed by Roberts.
I know, but I use Bob's rules.
Okay.
Okay, shortened version.
and then we won't get to Mike Flynn's rules, but any other nominations from the floor? And third time now, any other nominations for chair from the floor? No, Marcia.
Okay, now I will,
Move nomination
move
cease.
nomination cease and cast a unanimous ballot for Mike Flynn as chair.
Okay, thank you. And then we need to elect a vice chair. Any nominations from the floor for vice chair?
I nominate Eugene Hansen.
Is there a second to that nomination?
Second.
Any other nominations from the floor?
Louis Raymond.
Is there a second to the nomination of Louis Ryman?
I'll second that.
Okay, Jordan seconds that. Any other nominations for vice chair from the floor? Any other nominations from the floor for vice chair? And third time, any other nominations for vice chair from the floor? At that, we'll close the nominations. We need to vote. We've got Eugene and we got Louis. Eugene, you were nominated first. Do you have any words you want to say or anything?
Well, I've been involved with planning and zoning since 1971, and I was chairman the last term I had on the planning commission, and I think I'm qualified.
And Louis?
Well, I was vice chair the last time, and I've been on the chairman a few years here, and before this, I was on the EDA.
Okay. So the way we'll vote, Eugene, I'm going to use Eugene because you were first to nominate. Is that okay with the two of you in that order?
Okay.
So those who are in favor of Eugene, say aye.
Aye.
Say nay if you're not in favor of Eugene. I'm just trying to see where we are in the vote.
You want to do a hand vote?
I've only heard 2 nays, 3. Let's do a hand vote. I just want us to be accurate,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
So those in favor of Eugene, can you raise your hands? Okay, and it's 5. And those in favor of Louis, raise your hands. Okay. 2. Well, Eugene, congratulations. You got it
Thank you.
by the vote. I abstained, if that means anything. I didn't vote. Okay, now we need to nominate a secretary. You don't have to have great penmanship for this, because the staff kind of does a lot of it for you, but we need to
Who was this?
Lynn was last year,
Oh,
I
okay,
believe.
Lynn was.
So I need any nominations for secretary from the floor?
I'll nominate John Nichols.
Is there a second for John as
I'll
secretary?
second that.
Thank you. Any other nominations from the floor for secretary? Any other nominations for secretary from the floor? For the third time, any other nominations for secretary from the floor? Seeing none, we're going to close that. And
I move that we close nominations and cast a unanimous vote for John.
all right, so done. All right,
Thank you, sir.
so.
Left the station.
Okay, we're going to move to approve our agenda. Is there any changes or anything with the agenda? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the
So
agenda.
moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Jordan seconded. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Hearing none, all in favor. Approval of the minutes from December 19th. They should have been included in your packet. They're on page 3. Any changes or anything there? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from December 19th.
So moved.
And
Second it.
and Eugene seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed, nay. We have approved the minutes. Our next order is to approve the rules and procedures. I have to do this annually and adopt, and that's on page 13 through 16, which is right behind the minutes, by the way.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Jordan seconds it. All in favor of approving the rules?
Mr. Chairman, are we supposed to talk about any of these?
Well, we can. I can open that up for discussion. The ones you see are exactly the ones we adopted last year, but you can discuss change.
Okay, I don't have anything, but I just wanted to make sure that we got that on the record, that we had asked if there was anything we needed to discuss.
Well, I guess I assume with the motion and the second, and it was included in your packet. And basically, they're a foundation for us to follow. But it is appropriate if we or the body would find problem with the way we do things, you could introduce something else. But if there's no change you're recommending, fine.
Is there anything in this procedure about, like with this dog kennel thing, that we can delegate to a certain person to get our questions answered and have some belief that they will be answered?
Well, this is a procedural thing and it's more of a general thing. I think you're getting a little more specific and we would have to work with the staff on that. But it's rules, suspensions, that type of thing. Where we meet, the public place. So your question, it needs what I think are outlined in here to give us that course of action.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to add one thing on 3.1. It says parliamentary procedures governed by Robert's Rules of Order. It should probably be added in there, the current edition that's available to the floor.
I'm gonna, Steve Cantz, isn't it assumed that we're on the current edition?
Yes, it doesn't explicitly say that, but unless there's some controversy between editions, I would assume that we were working under the current edition.
I just don't know how far we want to wordsmith that.
All I'm going about is that
Changed.
sometimes they change every little bit, but they're very common from the last 2 editions. But there was some additions in the last one. But it probably would not affect this body here, really, no.
And it has changed many times, but again, we operate under usually most current, unless I'm wrong on that. And if
Right.
I hear you correctly, I'm not. All right.
And also I just note that the rules allow you to amend the rules at any time, so this isn't the only chance to
Sure.
change them if something comes up.
But this is our format, and it's hard to run a meeting unless you have rules. And it's actually meant to be somewhat generic, okay? And again, as Steve said, it gives us latitude. So we're not gonna put an amendment to your motion. And again, with some discussion, I'll ask for a vote if we're gonna adopt last year's, as our New Year's rules of procedure. All those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed, nay. Hearing none, we've adopted our current rules. The other thing, on June, our meeting falls on a national holiday, which is Juneteenth, which is the 19th. And it would be appropriate to discuss changing our meeting tonight in June to June 18th, which is a Wednesday.
So moved.
All right, is there a
Second.
second? Okay, any discussion?
I'll just note that we changed ours at the Board of Adjustment earlier
So
today.
we're following the other county
Sure.
things. If there's no other discussion,
18th To the Wednesday.
yeah, well, we really can't have a meeting on a holiday, okay? So we either cancel the meeting or adjust it to the day before. All those in favor of moving that to June 18th, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Hearing none, all in favor. Updates, Board of Adjustments, Jordan.
We had two variances today. One pertains to one that we'll have as an interim use permit today, the Ebbison one, and we granted them a variance, which is regarding the 50-foot setback from the rear yard of their property. They requested to lower that to 20. So we approved that. And we also had in Nodine, it was a variance from subdivision regulations, but really is just cleaning up some parcel lines and I don't see there being any major impact from that.
Messing with Nodine.
Yeah, it would be really hard to notice the changes.
Anything else?
That's all we had.
Marcia,
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
No,
Madam
no,
Chair.
that's okay. I'm just trying to think, because our first meeting in January had to be moved by statute. You have to meet the first Tuesday. And I think the last time this board met, we approved the one house in, down by Pickwick, but I don't think that came to our agenda yet. I think that'll come next Tuesday. So I might be wrong, time gets away from me, but I don't think we approved, there wasn't anything on our approval. I was gonna look.
Okay, you dealt with the cannabis issue quite well?
Oh, yes, yeah, we just went through, yeah, that, the cannabis, and I just came from a statewide meeting, and everybody's just kind of, scratching their heads. What are we doing? What are we trying to do with cannabis? The rules are gonna change, the situations are gonna change, but again, it was state legislature at one of their finest moments to, throw it at us at the very end and give us timelines and deadlines. But it's, yeah, and Eric Johnson's been working on it, and it's being worked on, as I could say, right, Eric? You're agreeing with me? But it will be a work in progress, and there may be always subject to change.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Does the petitioner, did they get notified officially that it's been changed, or are
Well,
they in the dark yet? Because you told them the 9th, I believe, at our last meeting would be brought before the county board.
And let me, maybe, did I mess up? Was it in there?
The county board did approve that conditional use.
That
permit.
was, okay, it was in there. Okay, I apologize. I mean, it was,
Yes, 1 week.
yeah, it was non-controversial, so it was on consent business. Okay, but normally it would have been the second
Yeah.
Tuesday, and we had to move it because of statutes, and
Thank you.
thank you for those reminders.
Now, old business, we've got the tabled petition from Beaslon Stone. A motion to
I
untable,
move to untable the petition from Bizon Stone.
and I do have a second on that. Louis seconded it. I cut Louis first, so.
That's good.
All those in favor of taking it off the table, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, it's been untabled. Now, commissioners, where do you want to go on that? Yeah, Eugene.
I got a guided tour of the site and it explained most of my questions. I have no problem with the conditional use permit to allow them to move more than 1,000 yards of material. So I have no further problems and I think we can vote and move on.
Any other comment for those who tabled it? No, Jordan.
I believe we were waiting to hear back from the neighbors regarding this.
And that's where Marcia, you came in.
Right, and I see they are here tonight.
Do you want to ask them any questions?
Yeah, or does Eric have some
Well,
information?
just a point of order, minutes document the discussion and the status. I think the public hearing was closed at your last meeting, so maybe just point of order, perhaps I believe you might have to reopen that up to follow up with it, but, I guess maybe that's.
What's Robert say about that?
You can reopen it.
Okay.
It takes a motion.
Well,
for the
I
committee to
would move
approve.
then.
Well, you could reopen a public hearing,
But I just have a
or you
specific-
ask for specific information
Yes,
from the neighbors.
right. And that's.
And that, they had said that they didn't have time
Right.
to read the petition. So to me, it's a matter, did they get adequate time to do what you wanted?
I believe so, but I was not able to make contact with the neighbors. I do see they're here, and I just would like to ask them if they had
And
any
I
other
will
questions.
give you that liberty to ask,
Right, but I
and the
did,
ask is to answer your question,
I
not
don't,
to open the public
yeah, I
hearing.
don't know, because I didn't make contact, I wasn't able to make contact with the neighbors again.
Okay,
But they did not contact me either, so, and I don't know if they had a chance to contact staff. Did staff have any questions from the neighbors?
Staff has no new information since the meeting. Checked in with Olivia and nothing new has come in from our perspective, so.
I think we got a problem opening up the public meeting without,
well, we didn't publish
Meeting
notice on
notice.
that, so I don't want to do that.
No,
think
but in
we
the
can.
past, we've always allowed for a specific question of a specific individual, even at the county board.
But if they don't follow through in the essence of getting projects
And
passed.
Steve, I
done,
think
we
you
gotta
can-
Respect that
They're
too.
here, yes,
Counsel?
they are here.
I think since they were, the board, or the commission had a question and they were going to answer it, I don't think there's a problem with allowing them to answer the question without reopening the public hearing.
Okay, so
And I'm giving you that liberty.
I just want to ask the neighbor ladies, and I apologize, I wasn't able to make.
And if they
contact.
both want to come up,
Yeah.
just say your name and come up and answer Commissioner Ward's questions, okay? Yeah, Nancy, you can do that, or both of you.
Yes.
And
please.
Nancy, just, I know where you live and everything,
Amen.
but just restate it.
Okay, I guess I didn't realize I was supposed to get a hold of somebody. I thought I was supposed to address it tonight. I didn't understand that when we left.
So I apologize, and do you still have questions or concerns?
I just have a couple. We had concerns about the safety of the groundwater, and we still aren't sure how close the road is going to be to the property. So we did have those two questions. And like I said, I apologize. I didn't know I was supposed to get a hold of somebody before the meeting.
That's a-
So otherwise I would have.
That's fine.
And you can speak to.
My name is Amber Baskowski. I guess my main concern is, he's coming forth asking for a personal use to access those back lots. And then he slid in there that it may eventually be used for trucks. That's two very different things. The trucks do a lot of damage on Quarry Hill Road as it is. That erodes property. I'm afraid that it's going to erode, if it's too close to our property line, it's going to erode our property eventually.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Now, I'm going to bring it back to the commission, okay? I do want us to remember to focus on what is the petition. The petition is about building an access. We're not here to decide easement. They can get an easement without coming here. To me, they've outlined how they want to construct access, accessibility. And then to do that, they need to move over 1,000 cubic yards of material, which brings them here for conditional use. So this issue is about the movement of material, and the road, as it's documented, is not on the neighbor's property, okay? So we have limits on what we can do. For example, the setback of the actual easement, that isn't privy to here unless I'm wrong on that. But we're not here to determine where that is built, as long as it's on the petitioner property. Because that seemed to be questionable last time we met on this. There seemed to be an issue about that. So now I'll give it back to the commission, and you tell me what you want to do, or where you want to go on this. If you answers your questions, I'll entertain a motion and move on it. Eugene,
I move that we approve the additional use permit to move 1,000 yards of, or more of material, and with the conditions and whatever else. What's the other group of questions?
recommendation.
Recommendations of the staff of planning commission.
Can I have a second? You guys know what page that, all that is on? I'm just trying to orientate. We have new commissioners.
Tab. It'd be starting on page
Kinda new for
35.
you. You didn't
35.
do the last one, no, but- Okay.
Can you do that before we vote?
Yeah.
Move along.
Okay.
Eliminate.
I have a motion. Let's clarify the motion.
Okay.
It starts on page 5.
Needed to go down.
35,
35.
35.
the conditions.
Criteria. Yeah, I have it all.
I have no problem.
And you're saying that all the findings of fact and the conditions, okay?
Yep.
And before, John, can I have your comment?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify, the motion was for a conditional use permit, but I believe it's an interim use permit that's being approved.
That is correct.
Right.
And that's the way it's stated in the.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
Conditional
We'll start
slash
and we'll
interim use permit.
So it has a limited time.
So I just wanted to kind of summarize my impression from the last time, which is that I felt that staff did a excellent job of describing what measures would need to be taken and what parameters would have to be watched. And for this project to create as little disruption as possible. I felt that it was reasonable, and I definitely heard the petitioners from the neighbors or the concerns from the neighbors. It didn't seem to me like they were as compelling as would be needed to reject this petition. And so just because we do have two new people here, I wanted to chime in that I support it.
Okay. And I also want to add to that, that they had to get a variance as well, and that has conditions that go along with this as well. And I refer to the county engineer being involved, along with soil and water conservation and so on, only because they mentioned their water quality and a few things of erosion and so on. Okay? Go ahead, Mike.
I visited with Jonathan too, and, took a look at it, and when they're concerned about eroding away and stuff, I think that's part of the problem with moving that much material, is to eliminate that problem. because it's pretty low in one spot, and in order to do it properly, I think they're addressing a long-range fix to it right out of the get-go, rather than just get a road and then if we got problems, we'll fix it later. They have a good engineered plan as far as I could see that it should be a good project.
Any other comments? Marcia?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Jonathan for offering to get people give a tour. I think for the two new people and anybody on these planning commissions, if you have questions about a site or anything, we highly encourage a visit, because you could, when you see it up close and firsthand, it's, you know, it's much different than looking at map drawings and everything. So I do appreciate his time and energy there. I do understand it's 1,000 cubic yards. This is more for staff moving forward. You know, we're looking at the comp plan, and then we're going to probably look at the zoning ordinance. So maybe more from staff. Do we ever limit the amount of dirt? I mean, this is like 18 times the, you know, the minimum. Do we ever limit the amount of dirt they can start moving? Maximum. Do we have a maximum?
We typically condition it based on the plans that have been submitted, that it's true to what was represented and according to the information. If you recall, the old ordinance that we had from the 80s up until 2011, the threshold was 500 cubic yards. And then with the new ordinance, this is one area that we made it 1,000 before that threshold was. So we didn't make things more restrictive in every regard. We figured if we had standards that we could hold it up to, that would be adequate.
Okay. And so with that said, though, being that this is in the, get the right zone, bluffland,
Yeah, there is some steep slopes, and that's,
slopes and
I
everything.
think,
So-
garnished most of the concern.
So from a planning perspective, is that something that should be reviewed? I think what they're doing is going to make an improvement for the neighborhood. I do. But if, say we had a catastrophic event like we did back in '07, I mean, that road will be gone. You know, the whole valley will be greatly impacted. So especially allowing more like similar types of things in the bluffland protection areas, that's something that we maybe should review.
We did, if you recall, actually, that's why they needed the variance,
Okay.
is we made that section so restrictive that development is prohibited, and development goes as far as saying creating new roads, not only structures. So we do have it pretty restrictive, but yes, there's always, I think, items of that should be looked at. I think there's concerns whether or not anybody wanted to mine, whether it be limestone or something to that nature. I think, I have legal questions whether our ordinance would even allow that.
Because that part is in Winona County, where the active mine is in the city of Winona currently. So if they do expand. Condition 4 does address, and the neighborhood, and even Jonathan expressed concerns about, erosion and everything. So they do have to have an erosion and sediment control licensed. And then that will be, who's going to monitor that? Is it the Soil and Water District? Or is it our staff? that's
Yes.
Being followed and it's.
I think we'd like to see or be notified when it's opened up and when best management and erosion control has been established. And then we would actually do a follow-up before we would close out that permit too.
Okay, because to get a vegetative cover established, it depends. If we have a drought year and it's steep slope and we get heavy rains, it's going to be a major undertaking to get any kind of vegetative cover. And is that covered in an erosion control, the type of plantings? and whatever
It
you have?
does, yes. They're not, in addition to the county, since they're going to be over an acre of surface disturbance, they're required by that federal and state, that NPDES stormwater permit. And they're very specified when they have to have things buttoned up and the type of seed mixes that they use in erosion control.
Those permits are great, but who monitors the activity that? Planning staff, or-
Somebody's not going to be out there every week or every day,
Is it
but
our responsibility as the county, or is it?
we
federal?
react to comments or questions or complaints. If we receive a complaint, we will have to investigate.
Okay, all right. And to address the neighbors' water quality, that's just an ongoing, and I guess from your perspective, fortunately, water runs downhill. And so most of the water will be running downhill. I guess I would maybe be concerned if I was Mr. Foster with the Hidden Valley Mobile Home Park. That seems to be one of the closest establishments to this.
Correct. The stormwater permits, that is their objective, is to basically curb and to retain and to prevent erosion and excessive runoff
Because
on
there's some, as
adjacent
you noted, there was
properties.
some steep gullies, just natural steep gullies. Nobody created them, they're just there. And then as far as closeness to the property line, you indicated last time that we have no dimensional restrictions to access roads.
Correct. There's no setbacks technically for driveways.
Okay, and so maybe that's something we want to put on the list to future consider? I don't know, I'm asking.
Right. I've heard both sides of that argument.
Okay, all right.
I would say in consideration of that, you have to take it issue by issue,
Correct.
where it fits. Use some common sense, wouldn't you?
I would think so.
And if the road's gonna get washed out, as far as I can see, it ain't water coming from his property.
Correct.
We're not asking the neighbors to build up dams and stuff to keep it off his road so it don't damage it. Is that what you're looking to have done?
Well,
Well,
we're- no,
you wanna
we're
protect the road, well.
we're always in charge of erosion. One of the big things that the soil and water does and the
Yeah.
county does and everything is to control erosion because we live in the rolling hills. And so I just want to make sure that these are in place to protect everybody. And then you can put all the permits and conditions on, but if there is no follow-up or anything, they're usually not worth, so it's important. I mean, we've had neighborhoods back in '07, we had a lot of problems because they had a huge amount of water. And we had a lot of erosion problems, and I dealt with a lot of people that had property damage, personal property, roads. County had many roads and everything. So we try to eliminate as much of this with some of these things as we possibly can. And,
But in this case, you don't trust your own county engineer on it?
well, his job is full-time.
Well, you use your best judgment.
But it's a private road, so how much control does a
On
county
your
highway
variance,
engineer?
you put that on the condition that he has access to that.
Right, but again,
And it's been engineered.
Yes, and we got soil and water and
I'm not
conservation.
arguing that. I'm trying to protect the whole, my job is to protect the whole neighborhood.
But-
And I've said, I think the petition needs to move forward, but we need to have things in place in cases.
But we're not starting a development where a whole bunch of,
Not at this time, no.
well, we have to look at the
That'll take
petition in
another
front of us.
conditional use to do that, so then we feel that if that
But
would
it
be
but
an
it
option.
does set up, there is somewhat of a precedent set. So I'm just being honest with you, trying
Well,
to lay
again,
it
they're,
out.
they're here for,
And I said it
material.
should be approved, yes. But these are things staff needs to maybe
I think
consider.
this is a discussion for other times when we're dealing with ordinances and stuff. I want to stick to the petitioner's ask and what they're here for. Bluey,
Well, I talked to the gentleman at Bison's Quarry, and what I found out was that they were going to put riprap below where the water would drain, and it
Thanks,
was going on to Bison's Quarry, and I think if you mentioned right, it was something like 1,300 feet to go to the next property line. If it rains enough that's gonna flood somebody down that line, that little road won't be there, and there'll be a lot more damage done than '02. And there's nothing you're gonna do to mitigate that damage as such.
again, we're calling it a
But I
road
know.
easement. This is not a road
Yes.
built to township specs.
No, we're not building interstates here.
It's their easement road and they could be dirt. An easement could be a dirt road too.
I-
But here, we're here with
I
concern.
would move we continue and we
Okay,
pass this resolution.
okay, any other discussions? Because I have a motion, a second. And we're gonna vote on it. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Hearing none. All in favor, okay? And your next hearing, though, will be on February 11th at 9 a.m. That's a Tuesday. So the next petition on our docket is PC 01-16-2501, and it's a petition to Consider a petition for Nels Robert Evanson on behalf of Nels and Jeremy Evanson, I said I had an N in there, to use an interim use permit regarding the following. To allow accessory unit for the provision of healthcare by a family member in pursuant to chapters 10.4.6.26 via 10.4.6.27 of the Winona County zoning ordinance. And take it away.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
you
Good
give us an
evening,
outline of
Commissioners.
what we need here. Thanks, Larry.
That was a introduction. I won't repeat the citations and the request. I think that was well stated. So we'll jump right into it here. Project summary. So we had that via there in the notice that he read, and that's because this petition comes forward under the similar uses clause. So within the conditional use section of the ag district, we have several dozen uses listed, and then we have kind of a catch-all similar uses conditional use. So this is coming forward under that, with the similar use being a modular home for healthcare purposes. In this case, they're seeking to build that secondary dwelling unit, but they're seeking to do it in a way that is not a modular home. It would be a 30 by 50 accessory dwelling unit, ADU, and that would be within a 150 by 50 accessory building. So it's a kind of a building in a building. It would be the healthcare provision, as I mentioned, to assist the elderly parents age in a rural setting. And as an interim use permit, it would eventually transition to a non-dwelling use. You see a project map, lower left-hand corner there, that red polygon, that is the proposed structure. It would be on a site where there's currently a smaller accessory structure that would be removed. You look, it's a 4.25 acre parcel with other accessory buildings on it. The driveway comes in, house on the north side with the septic system north of that. We have a well to the west of the house, and then we have some legacy accessory buildings to the south of the house. All of this parcel is zoned agricultural natural resources, as is the surrounding area. So here is a pathway through the ordinance. It's the conditional uses in the ag district, section or subsection 27. That's the other uses similar to those listed as permitted. And in this case, the similar use would be the one manufactured home in addition to other permitted dwellings when the manufactured home is occupied by family members providing healthcare or needing healthcare from one or more residents of the permitted dwellings. And then there's also a part-time farm help provision there that is not being sought in this case. In terms of it being an interim use, you'll notice 10.4.6 says conditional uses. There was a subsequent amendment to the ordinance that says, in effect, anytime you see the word conditional use, it means conditional or interim use permit. And some of you are likely familiar with how that works. So the site itself is a historic site. This is an aerial from 1940. You see the subject property in the center. At that point in time, it was part of an 80-acre farm. It was subsequently split off, and now it sits on a little over 4 acres. But many of the legacy buildings and the farm layouts remain. Here we're looking at an oblique view. We're kind of looking to the west here. You can see the development in the area. So there's a farm. If you move to the right there, that would be traveling north on County Road 19. There's a farm in that location. That's approximately a quarter mile away. The road you see there, cutting diagonally to the northwest, that is Liberty Drive, I believe. That's a township road that separates Wilson and Wiscoy townships. We've got a couple houses behind that. We've got another house there in the bottom right-hand corner. Newer home with no other accessory buildings in that location. And then we have a similar property just to the left there, which is a legacy farmstead, having been severed from its once acreage, now operating sort of like a hobby farm. Here we're looking to the north, another oblique view of it. We have a 3D rendering of the proposed structure. You see that it is divided into two. So that back portion, that smaller portion that you're seeing there, that would be the portion that would be the dwelling unit. The front portion would be used as an accessory structure to house machinery and equipment. And then you see the existing infrastructure on there as well. This is a landscape rendering, so you're seeing slopes illustrated by color. So this property sits on the summit of the ridge. Most of the property is fairly level. Yellow indicates it's under 12%. As it gets more red, it becomes steeper. So there are some berms and other variations within the elevation within the property. Those are man-made variations. One of them is a silage bunker, and the other to the left of the accessory structure, that's remnants from old buildings that have since been removed, but the ground is not perfectly level because of older foundations or things of that nature. Permit history. 1980, the county issued a permit for a septic system. And in 1990, the county issued a variance to reduce the distance required between the existing septic tank and a proposed addition on the home. And immediately following that grant, the actual zoning permit for that work came through. And then earlier this afternoon, the Board of Adjustment did grant them a variance to reduce the rear property line setback for that proposed accessory structure. So at that point, that building could be erected now without action from this group. It just could not contain a dwelling. Comments were received from Wiscoy Township. They also provided a statement saying that they believe there are no negative impacts to neighbors' ag use and property. We also received a statement of support from H. Sharp. He is the property owner at the western end of Liberty Drive, that road that separated Wilson and Wiscoy Townships. The recommendation from staff is that the committee should look at all materials and testimony before making findings that support your decision. Staff has provided analysis and that's provided guidance for the drafting of the findings. However, the county's attorney's office has prepared the findings that are in your packets for consideration today. And should the committee recommend approval, the county attorney's office has proposed conditions. Any questions for me?
Just one question.
Go ahead.
They will have to put in a new septic system, but are they going to share the well?
So I believe so, yes. The ordinance is silent on, we don't have regs for that, but the same question was posed earlier today and they addressed it saying, yes, they hope to connect to the existing.
Yeah, it's outlined there that they would. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Aaron, at this point? Otherwise, I'm going to have the petitioners come up.
I guess a question I have is, at what point does that new living area become unusable? Yeah, and it's a conditional area, but doesn't mean that later on it can be rented out. For that, how would we follow up?
Good question. There's several mechanisms that address that. The first would be the application submitted by the applicant. So in that they're telling us our intent is to use it for this period of time and no longer. It's a standard practice for all applications to come before you to contain a condition saying the applicant's going to do what they said they're going to do in their application. So that's answer one. Number two, we talked earlier about interim use permits and conditional use permits. So conditional use permits are valid as long as the conditions under which they were issued continue. Interim use permits have an identifiable end date. So in this case, it's not when the clock strikes 12 on this specific date, it's when either the owner which is the son, or the applicant, which is the parents, are no longer occupying one of those two buildings. And then it would cease. The condition placed on the approval would recommend that ceases when that's no longer happening, and then it transitions to a dwelling use at that time. So that doesn't mean it needs to be torn out. It just means it's no longer a dwelling. Now, if they wanted to do something like you said, rent it out, they would need to come back before this body and ask for permission to do that. I believe they indicated it might be used for storage earlier today before the Board of Adjustment. Does that answer your question? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Oh, sorry.
I'm
happy to.
No, would the petitioners care to come up and tell us your name and address and give us some insight on what you're up to?
Well, thank you for your time. My name is Nels Robert Ebbison. I live at 28159 County Road 19. My wife and I have enjoyed the residence on this particular property for about 33 years, and now we're planning for the future and foresee an eventual need for help as you get older from our family for day-to-day tasks and for possible health care. The Winona County zoning ordinance provides for this need in section 10.4.6, as mentioned before. The ordinance allows a manufactured home to be moved onto the property to house the elderly parents. The comprehensive plan of Winona County addresses the need in the rural residential development section where Goal 2 promotes developing, and I quote, safe and affordable housing that will meet the needs of an aging population. While a manufactured home would actually meet our needs, we envision a much more efficient use of the property by constructing a single floor living space within the outer structure of an agricultural type building. So in that case, the proposed dwelling is an innovative design that reflects the flexible site design intent outlined in the Winona County zoning ordinance 10.4.3. It also addresses policy 13 of rural residential development in the Winona County comprehensive plan. So what we're trying to do is take the standard way of looking at things and using it in a little bit different way so that we can get the best use out of our property. The proposed building addresses all of the above items with a non-traditional, most people don't live in a barn, but we wanted to have a space that we could incorporate within another building, since we're already planning on putting up a building, that we would have the living area inside of that. And this would be used in lieu of bringing a manufactured home onto the site. So it becomes part of a building that we already plan to use. We do not need to have another building moved onto the property, which would, in my opinion, would take more space than what we're planning to do. So the dwelling will discontinue being used, as Stephen asked about, when we no longer are there for healthcare or anything else. Basically, when we're gone, the conditional or interim use passes on. This property is a farmstead with original buildings, and the proposed building is a pole barn with the same style as the original buildings. All construction, operation, and maintenance will be identical to the original buildings on the property. We hope that this will maintain the agricultural style and nature of the farmstead more effectively than bringing a manufactured home to the property. So we plan to use the same electrical service from the transformer as existing residents. Water will be shared in the same well with the main residence, so no utility changes are required. Parcel will use the same driveway for both current residents and the proposed building, so no access changes are required for County 19. And the accessory building, since it is on the same footprint as the existing building we have there, will not interfere with the actively cultivated land that is around us. So we've spoken to all of the closest landowners, and the 5 of them that we did talk to have all supported us and agreed that this is a good plan for them. We just asked now that the planning commission would grant an interim use permit for living in a building within a building, as Aaron has called it, in lieu of a manufactured home. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions on what we're proposing?
Go ahead, Steve.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you stated in the proposal that this dwelling area would be inhabited by your son and his family,
No, it'll be inhabited by my wife and I. And
by your wife and I. Thank you. That
Mhm.
was-
so my son now owns the property, so he will take over the main residence, and we will live in the space that's in the pole barn.
Marcia, you have a question?
Yeah, question.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully
Yes, ma'am.
you have an ironclad contract with your son. You know, those kids can turn on you sometimes. Same driveway and everything, so it'll just maintain the same address?
I don't know how that works in the county.
Why did it have to have a different?
Usually I've seen two tags on the same
Yeah,
driveway.
yeah. So you might have to have, and with that concept, I would ask that if this is approved, that you contact, would that be in the Wilson Fire
Yes.
Service area? That you let them know that this has living quarters? Because we have a number of these throughout the county, and not everybody comes in and does the permitting, and they need to know that there's living space, so, you know, if anything would happen, that they know where they're going and what to be addressed, but
If I remember correctly, when there's multiple dwellings on one driveway, there's a different color tag that goes on the driveway.
or is it just two numbers?
I think it's two numbers.
I don't know if it's a different color. I think it's just two.
It won't be a different.
I've seen some red ones out there, and I
That's
assume that's what that
private.
is.
Well, that is,
I've never seen the red one. I'm sorry.
that's rural addressing. Isn't that,
Three, you have more than three off of the same
Okay.
driveway, then you get into the lane.
okay, and is it some are private roads? But that needs to be addressed for your own protection and then the protection of the fire, you know, the emergency responders.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Anyone? Thank you.
Thank you for
Good
your
job.
time.
Thank you.
Now I'll move to open the public hearing.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor of opening public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Say nay if you're opposed to that. Hearing none, public meeting is now open. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this petition, please come to the microphone, say your name and your address. For the second time, anybody wishing to speak for or against this petition, please come to the microphone and state your name and address. And for the third time, anybody wishing to speak for or against this petition, please come to the microphone, state your name and address. Hearing none?
Is this J.E., is he wanting to speak?
That's,
He's muted right now.
yeah, is that your son? Yeah,
He doesn't, he's just listening in? Okay, all right.
right.
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Is there a second to close it?
Good catch.
Louis, all in favor, say aye. For closing the
Aye.
public hearing, aye. Nay, those opposed, hearing none, all in favor.
Motion to approve
On,
with the cut findings in the.
so, and they're on page 26 and 7, I believe, and 8. The findings of fact and the conditions, is that what you're
Yes, sir.
motioning? Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Jordan seconds that. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. So all in favor. It has met our recommendation. Your next meeting will be with the county board on Tuesday, February 11th at 9 a.m. Okay, here. Any other things, or I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
I so move.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed to adjourning, say nay.